What if everything you have ever been told about why your life looks the way it does right now is completely, fundamentally wrong? What if the struggle, the lack, the loneliness, the quiet desperation you carry in your chest every single morning you wake up has nothing to do with the economy, your upbringing, your luck, or the particular cruelty of the circumstances that surround you? What if the single most devastating truth ever hidden from you is this? You were born a sovereign. You arrived in this world already crowned. Upon entering this existence, you were handed the scepter of an immense kingdom of infinite wealth, the kingdom of your own reality. Every circumstance you face, every individual who crosses your path, every event that unfolds before you is nothing more than a loyal subject awaiting the commands of their ruler. But at the precise moment of your coronation, a peculiar amnesia swept through you. You forgot your divine lineage. You released the scepter of your authority, and you began to accept, without question, the identity of a mere peasant inside your own empire, a subject of circumstances, a victim of seasons and the schemes of others. You have been living as a beggar inside a palace constructed entirely of gold, completely unaware that every corridor, every chamber, every treasure room belongs to you. This is not a self-help audiobook. Those exist in abundance, and most of them leave you inspired for 72 hours before the gravity of your old patterns pulls you back underground. This is something different. This is a reminder. It is the concealed map that will navigate you back to the throne room. It is the murmur of the royal advisor who has waited with extraordinary patience for the moment you would finally be ready to hear the unfiltered truth of your own authority. Inside this material, you will not encounter desperate pleas or fragile hopes. You will encounter the operating principles of sovereign power. You will come to understand that your subconscious mind is the architect of your kingdom, a dormant giant who obeys without hesitation every one of your silent commands. You will learn that your imagination is the royal architect's studio, the space where the schematics of entire civilizations are drafted before the first stone is ever placed. And you will discover that feeling, raw emotional sensation, is the only language the court of your soul genuinely comprehends and honors. This knowledge has been obscured not because it is complicated, but because it is radical. It returns dominion to its rightful owner. It extracts you from the comfortable exile of victimhood and seats you on the throne of absolute responsibility. The amnesia ends here. The forgotten decree, the one that proclaims your sovereignty, is about to be announced once more. The universe is an echo of your mind. Discard the peasant narrative. Abandon the grand sleepwalking, the collective hypnosis that has conditioned you to believe you are a small, fragile creature at the mercy of an enormous, unpredictable, and frequently hostile world. That is the amnesia. That is the cell whose door has never actually been locked. The truth, the one residing at the center of all concealed wisdom. The first and most consequential of all revelations is that your outer kingdom, your financial circumstances, your relationships, your physical health is not an autonomous entity that simply happens to you. It is an echo, a living, immaculate, and sometimes brutally candid mirror that reflects without distortion or judgment the precise state of your inner court. Life is not occurring to you. It is occurring in response to you. Envision a young king who inherits an enchanted dominion. Initially, in the amnesia of his youth, he is oblivious to the secret of his realm. When he awakens, consumed by fear, storm clouds accumulate over the castle, and the fields wither beneath an unexpected frost. When he grows frustrated with an adviser, the kingdom's roads fill with thorns, and the rivers, once crystalline and swift, become murky and sluggish. Believing the kingdom is the origin of his suffering, the young king wages war against it. He instructs his soldiers to launch arrows into the clouds to disperse them. He dispatches servants to extract the thorns with their bloodied hands. He issues decrees demanding that the rivers be purified. But his efforts are futile because every act of resistance only amplifies his frustration. His conviction of powerlessness intensifies, and the kingdom, in its flawless obedience to the law, can only mirror back greater chaos. The more he fights, the thornier and darker his world becomes. He feels like a prisoner on his own throne. One day, exhausted and conquered, he surrenders entirely. He dismisses his armies and his servants. He sits in solitude inside the vast throne room, and for the first time, rather than staring furiously through the windows at his deteriorated kingdom, he looks inward. In a moment of stillness, of pure despair, he recalls a simple joy from his childhood, the sensation of sunlight on his face while running through an open field of flowers. He does not analyze it, he feels it. And in that instant, a single hesitant ray of sun pierces the storm clouds and illuminates a cluster of dust dancing in the air of the room. Intrigued, he nurtures that sensation. He discovers gratitude for that solitary ray of light, and through the window, he observes the distant fields beginning to turn green once more. Astonished, he directs his attention toward peace, toward the sensation of stillness now saturating the throne room, and he hears the rivers resuming their flow with clarity and vitality. Then, in a surge of comprehension that pulls him to his feet, he grasps the secret of his authority. He was never the ruler who needed to govern the kingdom from the outside. He was the kingdom itself. The weather of his soul was the weather of his land. The peace within his heart was the peace within his dominion. This principle is not a fable. It is a law of the physics of consciousness. It is the foundational contract between your existence and reality, and it operates through resonance. The universe is not a collection of solid, inert objects. It is an infinite ocean of vibrating energy, a field of consciousness. Everything within this field, including you, emits a frequency, a distinct musical note. Your state of being, the sum of your thoughts, your convictions, and above all your dominant emotions, constitutes your fundamental note, the composition you are perpetually broadcasting, consciously or not. It is the contraction in your chest when fear grips you. It is the expansion in your heart when love moves through you. That physical sensation is the vibration, and the law of resonance is impersonal, precise, and infallible. It states simply that like attracts like. If you broadcast the note of scarcity and fear, the universe, functioning like a cosmic tuning fork, is compelled to vibrate into your experience other expressions of scarcity, unexpected financial burdens, missed opportunities, relationships constructed on lack. If you broadcast the note of certainty and abundance, the universe must by law resonate into your life. The circumstances, the individuals, and the openings that harmonize with that frequency of abundance. You do not attract what you desire through your words alone. You attract what you are vibrationally. Your thoughts are the architect's blueprints, but your feeling, your state of being, is the vibration that instructs the universe to build. This revelation marks the conclusion of powerlessness and the commencement of sovereignty. It is the most profound act of defiance you can commit against the tyranny of your circumstances. It reveals that fighting the external world is the most futile, draining, and unnatural act available to you. Attempting to alter your finances without first transforming your consciousness of wealth is identical to trying to force your reflection in the mirror to smile, while your own face holds a frown. Regardless of how loudly you shout at it, how desperately you plead with it, or how severely you threaten it, the mirror can only reflect the truth of what stands before it. Attempting to restore your body without healing the consciousness that inhabits it is like painting over a damp wall. Eventually, the moisture resurfaces. The sole point of power, the only seat of creation, is the source of the image itself. The primal law has been revealed. Your universe is mental. The world is your mirror. Your state of being is the cause. Your life is the effect. You must enter the court of your consciousness and come to know the true forces that have been governing in your absence. Your inner court, the origin of the frequency you broadcast, holds three immense authorities. The first are the counselors of the throne, your thoughts. The most vocal members of your inner court are your thoughts. They are the countless advisors who whisper, announce, and argue in your awareness at every moment. You experience thousands of them daily. An unceasing chorus that renders opinions, pronounces judgments, replays memories, and maps out futures. The sleeping sovereign, the child king, commits a devastating error. He treats every one of these counselors as a source of absolute truth. He merges with every voice that speaks. He is a fragile ruler dragged forward by the most recent rumor that circulates through the court. When a counselor murmurs that he will fail, the king shudders and retreats into the castle. When another proclaims that he is insufficient, the king accepts the verdict in shame and surrenders his authority. When a third mourns the past, the king joins the lament and suffers over what can no longer be altered. The awakened sovereign masters the art of royal discernment. He occupies his throne in the stillness of his consciousness as the observer, and he learns to witness his counselors without merging with them. He recognizes that a thought, however loud or persistent, is merely a suggestion, a proposal placed before the court. It carries no binding power until he, the sovereign, grants it the royal seal of his belief and his focused attention. In your court, you harbor counselors of every temperament. The counselor of fear is the oldest, most primitive, and most vocal. He is your ancient guardian, fixated on survival. His sole function is to preserve your safety, and his only definition of safety is whatever resembles the past. He will perpetually recommend the most cautious path, the one that mirrors what has already occurred. He will caution you against any risk, any aspiration, any act of courage. His intent is to protect you, but his counsel, if followed without discernment, will confine you to an increasingly contracted kingdom. The counselor of doubt is fear's closest relative. He is the voice of your accumulated programming, of the inherited narratives of others. He interrogates your worth, your capacity, your entitlement to rule. He compares your kingdom to those of others and reminds you of your past stumbles. He murmurs that you are not worthy of the crown you wear. And then there is the quiet voice, the counselor who never shouts, but only murmurs. He is the expression of your soul, your higher awareness. He does not speak to you of safety, but of magnitude. He does not rehearse your past, but illuminates your potential. He does not employ the logic of fear. He uses the language of expansion, of resonance, of joy. The sovereign's task is not to silence the counselors of fear. That is an impossible and exhausting endeavor. His task is to learn to distinguish the voices, to acknowledge the counselor of fear with appreciation for his loyalty, and then with sovereign composure redirect his full attention toward the murmur of inspiration. The second power within your inner court is the architecture of your beliefs, the laws of the kingdom. Deeper and more formidable than the counselors are your foundational beliefs. If a thought is a suggestion, a belief is the constitution. It is the fundamental law inscribed in stone at the founding of your kingdom, often during your earliest years. That dictates what is possible and what remains impossible within your reality. Your entire kingdom functions under the authority of these laws, whether you are conscious of them or not. A sovereign may decree abundance for all, a constructive thought in the present moment. But if the foundational law of the kingdom, composed long ago, insists that scarcity is reality and struggle is the mark of virtue, then the kingdom will continue to generate scarcity. The builder, your subconscious mind, is bound to honor the Constitution, not the king's momentary inclinations. The awakened sovereign understands that his deepest power does not reside in issuing daily directives to his counselors, but in rewriting the Constitution itself. If the law of your kingdom declares that love is dangerous and always concludes in devastation, no number of deliberate efforts to attract a harmonious relationship will succeed, because your internal system will consistently undermine the experience to remain faithful to the law. The third power is the vast treasury of your emotional life. Your dominant emotional state, the feeling that permeates your being throughout the hours of your day, is your true vibrational broadcast to the universe. When you think about expansion, but simultaneously feel the contraction of lack, you are creating dissonance. You are singing words of prosperity over a melody of panic. And the universe, the mirror, does not reflect the lyrics. It reflects the music, because the music is the authentic expression of your being. Feeling is the true prayer. It is the state of being that, by the law of resonance, draws its equivalent into the world of tangible forms. Modern inquiry has validated this ancient understanding. The human heart generates an electromagnetic field of extraordinary potency. Your thoughts carry the electrical dimension of the signal containing the blueprint, the information, the design. Your feelings carry the magnetic dimension, the attractive force, the drawing power. When you unite a clear thought in your mind with a coherent sensation in your heart, you generate a unified and compelling electromagnetic signal. You are handing the universe both a precise blueprint and the magnetic force necessary to gather the required materials. A thought without feeling is a blueprint without a magnet. A feeling without a clear thought is a magnet without direction. The union of both constitutes the sovereign act of conscious creation. And here lies the concealed mechanism for commanding the giant within you. The subconscious is the mind of the body. It does not comprehend abstract logic. It understands sensation. When you experience gratitude, your body produces a biochemistry of well-being and expansion. When you experience fear, it produces a biochemistry of stress and contraction. Feeling is the language that translates an abstract concept into a biochemical and neurological instruction. When you assume the feeling of your desire already fulfilled, you are not pretending. You are performing an act of genuine alchemy. You are literally directing your body to generate the chemistry of your new reality. You are teaching it at a cellular level what it feels like to be that new version of yourself. And your subconscious, receiving this felt instruction, this new familiar sensation, accepts it as established fact. Since its function is to maintain coherence between your inner state and your outer world, it will relentlessly begin to reorganize circumstances so that your physical reality aligns with the feeling you have claimed as your authentic truth. The giant within you is not a metaphor. It is the driving force of your entire existence. The sages across centuries have addressed it by many names: the subjective mind, the soul, the genie within the lamp, the architect of the body. Following in the footsteps of the great master Joseph Murphy, we will call it your subconscious mind. Your conscious mind, the sovereign who occupies the throne, is the gardener who selects the seeds. It is the 5% of your awareness that analyzes, questions, and chooses. But your subconscious mind is the garden itself. It is the fertile terrain of unlimited power and unfathomable intelligence that will cause any seed delivered to it to germinate and flourish without questioning, without evaluating whether it is a fragrant blossom of abundance or a poisonous weed of fear. The subconscious constitutes 95% of your total mind. It is the vast continent of which your conscious awareness is only a narrow coastal island. And this giant, this builder, carries 3 fundamental characteristics you must fully understand if you are to govern your kingdom with genuine mastery. The power of the subconscious is so immense that your logical mind can barely begin to conceive of its true scope. It is not merely a recorder of habits and routines. It is the administrator of life itself. It is the architect of your physical body. It is the intelligence that, without receiving a single deliberate instruction from you, causes your heart to beat more than 100,000 times each day. It is the wisdom that coordinates the trillions of biochemical processes occurring in your cells every single second. It is the infallible physician who mends your wounds while you are asleep, who processes your nourishment and converts it into tissue, bone, and vital energy. It is the mind that began with a single fertilized cell and, following a flawless internal blueprint, constructed the biological universe of trillions of cells that comprises your body, if it possesses the capacity to build and sustain an entire living organism, do you honestly believe it encounters any difficulty constructing a financial circumstance or drawing a relationship into your experience? The answer, when examined with honesty, is no. The limitation has never resided in the giant. It has resided in the quality of the commands the giant has been receiving. The second characteristic is that the subconscious is the custodian of your complete archives. Its memory is total and without error. It is the immense library that holds every experience you have ever encountered, every face you have observed, every phrase you have absorbed, every emotion you have moved through. It maintains an infinite record of everything that has ever passed through the field of your awareness. And the third characteristic, perhaps the most extraordinary of all, is that your subconscious mind is not a sealed, isolated entity. It is your direct connection to the universal mind, to the quantum field, to the limitless ocean of intelligence and creative potential. Through it, you have access to wisdom and capacity that far transcend the boundaries of your personal history and individual experience. It is the channel through which genuine intuition flows, through which authentic inspiration arrives, and through which the healing intelligence of the universe finds its way into your life. And here lies the secret of the giant's authority and your apparent powerlessness until this moment. The giant operates without personal bias. It carries no individual will in the manner your conscious mind does. It does not judge, it does not argue, it does not negotiate. It functions as fertile earth functions. The earth does not evaluate whether you plant wheat or thorns. It simply, with absolute impartiality, cultivates whatever you place within it. The subconscious does not assess whether your command is oriented toward wealth or toward poverty. It does not evaluate whether your blueprint describes radiant health or chronic disease. It holds no moral code of its own. Its single directive is unwavering loyalty to the seed it receives from its sovereign, your conscious mind. The giant is a flawless servant, and this is precisely why one individual can employ this same power to construct a life of extraordinary contribution, while another uses it to produce a life of persistent suffering. The power is identical in both cases. The only variable is the nature of the instruction delivered to it. The builder's logic is the mechanical key you must master in order to move from powerlessness to genuine authority. Your conscious mind, the sovereign, seated on the throne, operates through inductive reasoning. It observes the external world, gathers evidence, makes comparisons, conducts analysis, and arrives at a conclusion. It sees scarcity present in the environment and concludes that life is fundamentally a struggle. Your subconscious mind, the giant, operates through deductive reasoning. This means it receives the premise delivered by your conscious mind as an absolute and unalterable fact, as a foundational law of the kingdom, and from that premise it proceeds to construct with impeccable logical consistency an entire universe of consequences. If your conscious mind, through the accumulated pattern of your habitual thoughts and feelings, delivers the premise to the giant that you are insufficient, the giant does not question it. It receives it as the founding law, and from that point forward deduces that it must generate experiences of rejection, that it must undermine opportunities for advancement, that it must draw toward you individuals who reflect that same belief in your insufficiency back at you in their behavior and their choices. If on the contrary you, as sovereign, settle into your throne, quiet the counselors of fear, and deliver the deliberate premise that you are the embodiment of abundance, the giant receives that new law without resistance and begins to deduce from it that it must open the channels of prosperity, that it must direct you toward the precise opportunities aligned with that truth, that it must reorganize the circumstances of your external life to reflect this new foundational reality. The giant does not author the premise, it only constructs, with immaculate logic, the structure that the premise implies. Why then has this giant of boundless power been producing a kingdom of limitation and suffering? Because the sovereign has been absent from the throne, and in your absence, the giant has not ceased its labor. It has been receiving its instructions not from your deliberate and sovereign decrees, but from the disorder of your untended inner court. It has been absorbing the murmurs of the counselors of fear and receiving them as official royal commands. It has been honoring the outdated laws of scarcity inscribed in your constitution long before you were old enough to question them. It has been faithfully producing a precise reflection of the anxious atmosphere that has dominated your inner court for years. The giant is not the one who has been dormant. You have been the one dormant, and your servant, in its boundless loyalty, has simply been executing the commands of chaos, sincerely believing they were yours. Commanding the subconscious is not an act of force. You cannot shout directives at it through your logical mind. The giant does not comprehend the language of reason. It is not moved by arguments, analysis, or moral persuasion. Attempting to convince your subconscious through logic is equivalent to attempting to instruct a river in the principles of mathematics. The river will not understand you. It will simply continue flowing according to the laws of gravity. The giant also operates under laws, and to command it effectively, you must communicate with it in its own language, a language older than any spoken word. The first principle of commanding the giant is the language of feeling, the royal seal. The subconscious is the mind of the body. It is the mind of emotion and sensation. Its native language is not thought, it is feeling. The great mystic Neville Goddard, one of the most penetrating minds ever to explore this science, condensed it into a phrase that functions as the master key to this entire principle. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, a concept, however crisp and articulate within your conscious mind, if it carries no emotional charge, is an unsigned blueprint. It is a decree without the royal seal. It is a directive that the giant cannot recognize as genuine or binding, but a concept saturated and impregnated with the feeling of its own completed reality becomes an irrefutable command. Envision a sovereign who intends to construct a bridge. If he merely thinks about the bridge as an abstract object, the giant, his master builder, remains completely motionless. It is simply another thought circulating through the noisy court, indistinguishable from thousands of others. But if the sovereign closes his eyes and genuinely feels the solid stone of the bridge beneath his feet, if he feels the breeze moving across his face as he crosses it, if he feels the deep gratitude of the people whose lives have been altered by this new connection, the giant receives the message. It has not processed the word bridge. but it has fully registered the experience of connection, of solidity, of gratitude, and it will begin to move earth and stone to materialize that felt reality. Your task as sovereign is not to think about your desire. It is to feel your desire as an already present reality. Feeling is the signature that authenticates the decree. It is the royal seal that communicates to the giant that this is not a casual wish or a fleeting hope. This is an executed order. The second principle is the seal of faith, the unequivocal command. The giant is infinitely capable, but it is also extraordinarily literal and possesses no capacity for irony or ambiguity. It does not distinguish between a sincere command and a tentative experiment. It is acutely responsive to the authentic vibrational state of the sovereign. If you issue the command to build a palace of abundance, but simultaneously carry within you the vibration of doubt, wondering whether this will genuinely produce results, the giant receives two contradictory instructions simultaneously. Your spoken intention says build, but your underlying feeling, which is its true language, says I doubt the validity of this directive. Prepare for the familiar outcome of failure. And since the giant's secondary function is to preserve you within the familiar, and since failure and limitation have been the familiar terrain of your experience, it will invariably honor the stronger and more deeply established command, the one carried by your habitual state of doubt. Faith, in this context, is not a religious virtue. Within the framework of consciousness engineering, it is a precise tool. It is the sovereign's absolute certainty in the validity of his own decree. It is not hoping the giant will eventually respond. It is the deep knowing that the moment the order is issued, the construction has already commenced on the invisible plane of cause. When you deliver an instruction to your subconscious, you must do so from a state of unshakable conviction. You must completely abandon the posture of supplication. You are not requesting a favor from a distant power. You are proclaiming a law, and a sovereign does not entertain doubt about the efficacy of his own laws. The third principle is the ritual of imprinting the sovereign's workshop, knowing the language, which is feeling, and the authority required, which is faith. You must now learn the precise moment and the specific method for delivering your decree with maximum potency. The giant is not uniformly receptive to new foundational commands. During the active hours of the day, the gatekeeper of your conscious and critical mind maintains high alert, interrogating and blocking any new instruction that contradicts the existing programming. The most sacred window, the instant when the gatekeeper begins to doze and the gates to the giant's chamber swing wide open without resistance, is the drowsy state. That extraordinary portal between wakefulness and sleep. In this threshold state, your mind operates in theta waves, the identical hypnotic frequency of your early childhood. You are once again in direct recording mode, capable of receiving new foundational impressions without the interference of critical resistance. The ritual of imprinting is therefore a nightly practice. It is the most consequential work of your day. Preparation for it begins in the final hour before sleep. During this time, withdraw from screens. The blue light emitted by phones and televisions sends a direct signal to your brain to remain in the beta state of heightened alertness and analytical processing. It is the equivalent of blowing cold air across the surface of wax you are attempting to soften. Disengage from news broadcasts, which function as concentrated injections of fear and disorder, the precise opposite of the receptive state you are cultivating. Reduce the intensity of your lighting. Read material that uplifts and expands. Allow your system to begin its descent toward stillness. In this preparation, you are softening the wax of your subconscious so that when you reach the threshold state, it will be fully receptive to the seal of your sovereign intention. Once you have reached that delicious borderland between wakefulness and sleep, where your body rests almost completely, but your awareness remains gently present, the time for the lullaby arrives. You do not visualize your desire through strained mental effort. You simply assume the feeling that it is already real. You do not think about your desire as something separate from you, positioned somewhere in the future. You think from your desire, from within the reality of its completion. Ask yourself with genuine openness, how would I feel right now if this were already an established fact of my life? If what you seek is the restoration of your health, the feeling is one of deep relief and surging vitality. If what you seek is the experience of financial freedom, the feeling is one of profound security and unguarded peace. If what you seek is the presence of genuine love, the feeling is one of fullness, of being completely received. Select the essential feeling and inhabit it. Feel it in your chest, in your hands, in the center of your body, and then repeat that feeling again and again, not as a mechanical exercise, not as a chore you are performing with discipline, but as a lullaby that soothes you into natural sleep. You immerse yourself in the sensation of your desire fulfilled. You allow it to become so familiar, so natural, so simply the way things are, that you drift across the threshold of sleep while residing within it. This act of saturating your subconscious mind in the final moments before sleep is among the most potent acts of command available to a human being. You are assigning the giant its exclusive directive for the next 8 hours of its ceaseless labor, and it, in its boundless capability and absolute faithfulness, will receive that feeling, that new premise, and begin constructing in the unseen world a perfect reflection of the reality you have claimed as your truth. It will begin organizing the synchronicities, generating the inspired ideas, and positioning the opportunities that you will encounter upon waking, presented as if by chance, as if the universe itself has rearranged to accommodate your decree. A blueprint, however flawless and precise in its design, remains nothing more than a collection of lines on paper. A thought, however clear and well formed in your mind, is only an ethereal vibration, an electrical impulse traveling through neural tissue. By itself, it lacks the substance, the energy, the magnetic signature that grants it the authority to be built into tangible reality. A thought without emotion is a decree without the royal seal. It is a directive the giant cannot read. It is a blueprint that never reaches the construction site. Feeling is the seal. Feeling is the signature. Feeling is the charge that converts a simple thought into a creation command. This principle is not poetic ornamentation. It is the description of a precise and verifiable law of consciousness operating through mechanisms that are both neurological and metaphysical. Your dominant emotional state is your true energetic signature, the composition you are perpetually broadcasting, every second of your waking and sleeping existence. When you think about abundance while simultaneously feeling the fear of scarcity, you are performing a deeply dissonant act. You are singing the lyrics of wealth over the music of panic. And the universe, functioning as your mirror, does not reflect the lyrics, it reflects the music. Because the music is the authentic truth of your vibrational being. Feeling is the true prayer. It is the state of being that, through the immutable law of resonance, perpetually draws its equivalent into the world of tangible forms. The untrained mind, upon encountering this understanding, instinctively reaches for pretense. It attempts to force a smile, to suppress the underlying fear, and to perform as though the desired reality already exists. But this performance is entirely an act of the conscious ego, and the subconscious giant cannot be deceived by surface-level performance. Pretending is rooted in the acute awareness of lack. It is the act of a poor actor reciting lines without genuine conviction while glancing anxiously at the audience for approval. The giant perceives the dissonance between the mask being presented and the genuine underlying vibration beneath it, and it simply ignores the performance. Assuming is a categorically different act. It is not pretending to be something you are not. It is the deliberate act of remembering who you are at a level deeper than your current circumstances can reflect, and choosing to inhabit that truth despite the shadows your past programming continues to cast across the mirror of your present reality. Assumption is an act of sovereign consciousness. It is the king who, even while clothed in the garments of a beggar, knows in the very marrow of his bones that he is the ruler. He does not attempt to perform royalty for an audience. He simply is the ruler, and his internal state, held with unwavering consistency, must sooner or later compel the external world to rearrange itself in alignment with his genuine identity. Your task is not to convince yourself of your desire through argument or repetition. It is to assume the identity of the individual who already possesses what you seek. And to accomplish this, the sovereign employs the most powerful instrument in his entire court, his imagination. Your imagination is not a factory of idle fantasies. It is a portal. It is the dimensional gateway that permits you to travel in consciousness, to deliberately depart from the reality your five senses currently present to you, which is nothing more than an echo of your past vibration, and to enter the reality of your desire already fulfilled, so that you can feel it, capture its emotional signature, and carry that signature back into the present moment as your new dominant frequency. The sovereign does not employ his imagination merely to observe his desire from a distance. He uses it to inhabit the desire completely, to feel it from the inside. The image is the key. The feeling is the treasure. Consider a young prince who has spent his entire existence in exile, living in a remote village, entirely ignorant of his true lineage. He has known only the life of a common laborer, surrounded by scarcity and persistent effort. One day, a royal messenger locates him, presents the official seal, and reveals the truth. He is the sole heir to the throne, and his kingdom has been awaiting his return. Initially, the prince cannot absorb this revelation. His entire experiential reality has been one of exile and limitation. But the messenger has delivered the proof, the knowledge, the undeniable evidence of his identity. The prince now faces two paths forward. he can continue inhabiting the mental and emotional state of the exile, passively waiting for the royal army to arrive and escort him to the coronation. He can wait for the external event of assumption to finally grant him permission to feel like a king. Or, from this precise instant, he can begin to assume the state of being of the sovereign he actually is. Even in his simple clothing, he begins to move with a different quality of presence. His gaze acquires a new clarity of authority. He thinks not from the contracted perspective of someone waiting to be rescued, but from the expansive perspective of someone preparing to govern. He is not performing royalty for the benefit of observers. He is rehearsing his own authentic being. He is aligning his interior state with his inevitable truth. And when he finally occupies the physical throne, he will govern with a depth of wisdom, composure, and genuine authority that no external coronation ceremony could have produced on its own. You are that heir. And the revelation contained within this material is the messenger who has placed the royal seal in your hands. Your task is not to wait for the physical manifestation, for the money to arrive, for the health to be restored, for the relationship to appear before you. Allow yourself to feel like the sovereign of the reality that is already yours by the deepest right of your consciousness. Your task begins right now, in this moment, with the internal shift that precedes every external transformation. How is this assumption actually practiced? Through a sacred and reproducible ritual performed in the one place where the giant listens without the distorting interference of the external world, your inner temple, ideally practiced in the portal of sleep, in the theta state, the drowsy threshold between wakefulness and full unconsciousness. Define first what is called the implied scene. Choose a brief, simple, first-person scene that unfolds after your desire has already been fulfilled. Not the moment of receiving the financial windfall, but the moment of experiencing the freedom that abundance provides. Not the dramatic moment of meeting someone, but the quiet, ordinary moment of a completely natural embrace with a partner. If your desire is the restoration of your health, the scene might be a trusted friend looking at you with genuine surprise and saying with warmth, "I have never seen you appear so vital." Enter the workshop of your inner stillness. Withdraw into silence. Relax your body completely. Close your eyes. Allow yourself to descend into that drowsy state where the analytical voice of logic begins to soften and fade. Now, bring your chosen scene to mind. But your objective is not to construct it with the visual precision of a film director demanding perfect clarity in every detail. Your objective is to employ the scene as a means of evoking an emotion. If the scene involves your friend expressing genuine astonishment at your vitality, do not concentrate on the specific features of your friend's face or the exact words being spoken. Concentrate entirely on the felt quality of the experience those words would generate within you. The wave of relief moving through your entire body, the deep gratitude expanding in your chest, the serene joy of a burden that has been permanently lifted. Once you have genuinely captured that feeling, you can allow the scene itself to dissolve. The key has accomplished its function. Now you rest in the treasure. You inhabit the feeling of relief with your full attention. You make it the atmosphere of your inner world. You breathe it. You allow it to saturate every layer of your awareness. You fall asleep not while thinking about healing as an object of pursuit, but while being the healthy individual who experiences immense relief as a natural, established fact of existence. The scientific prayer, as it has been practiced by the most conscious individuals throughout human history, is the total reversal of what most people understand prayer to be. Prayer, as it has been commonly taught, is an act rooted in powerlessness. It is the supplication of the peasant directed toward a distant and capricious authority, an external deity residing somewhere beyond the boundaries of the self. It is a petition that may or may not receive a favorable response, depending on variables entirely outside the petitioner's influence. Every phrase of this nature, though born of genuine need, is fundamentally a declaration of lack. It is a vibrational confirmation that the power resides elsewhere, that the self is separate from the source, that the desired reality is absent, and the universe, functioning as an immaculate mirror, and the subconscious, functioning as an impeccably literal servant, can only respond to the authentic truth of your broadcast state. If your internal state is that of a supplicating petitioner, they will construct for you a kingdom in which perpetual supplication is the defining condition. The scientific prayer is the sovereign's prayer. A sovereign does not petition. A sovereign decrees. The scientific prayer is not an act of communication directed toward an external intelligence. It is an internal, reproducible, and precisely structured process for imprinting a clear, felt intention onto the only creative power that genuinely exists within your personal universe, your own subconscious mind. You do not seek to alter the disposition of an external deity. You seek to transform your own mind, fully understanding that your subconscious is your direct connection to the universal intelligence, the center of the creative power operating within your personal experience. You do not petition for a miracle to be delivered from outside. You issue the internal command that sets the miraculous mechanism in motion from within. For a command to be received and executed with precision by the giant, it must satisfy two conditions simultaneously. It must be clear in its essential feeling, and it must be delivered during a moment of maximum receptivity. The drowsy state satisfies the second condition perfectly. Your desire, distilled to its simplest and most powerful emotional essence, satisfies the first. Together, they constitute the complete act of sovereign imprinting. The 5 steps of this ritual move through a progression that is not mechanical, but organic. It is not a rigid formula to be executed with disciplined force. It is a seduction of the soul, a gentle drawing of the subconscious toward a new truth by making that truth feel so natural, so familiar, and so emotionally resonant that the deep mind accepts it without resistance, as though it has always been so. The first step is the preparation of the inner temple. The sovereign does not enter the royal chamber in a state of distraction or agitation. He prepares the space with deliberate care. Your ritual begins well before the moment of sleep. In the final hour preceding rest, withdraw your attention from screens. The artificial light and the stimulating content of digital devices keep your brain locked in the beta state of analytical alertness, the precise state that hardens the wax of your subconscious against new impressions. Withdraw equally from news and from any conversation that carries the frequency of conflict or anxiety. Allow your system to begin its natural descent towards stillness and receptivity. This preparation is the first act of softening the wax. The second step is the creation of the seal, the distillation of your intention into a single, powerful feeling. Before you enter the drowsy state, you must know with absolute clarity what the essential feeling of your fulfilled desire is. Not a complex narrative, not a detailed account of the journey toward it, a single impression, a singular felt quality. The giant does not process abstract logic. It processes sensation. You must therefore condense your desire into its simplest sensory essence. A brief scene or a single physical feeling that could only exist after your desire has already been realized. If you seek prosperity, perhaps the scene is the sensation of your fingers moving across an object you would only possess as a naturally prosperous person. Or perhaps it is simply the feeling of deep, unguarded relief when observing your financial circumstances and finding them entirely aligned with your sense of security and freedom. If you seek the restoration of your health, the scene might be your body moving through the world with a freedom and energy it previously lacked, climbing stairs without effort, walking through an open space with the ease and joy of someone who has reclaimed their vitality. Or it might be a simple phrase you speak internally, not as a mechanical affirmation, but as a genuine sigh of quiet awe. The feeling that underlies the words is everything. The third step is the descent to the portal. Lie down completely. Allow your eyes to close without effort. Begin a conscious and gentle relaxation of your body from the extremities inward. Feel the accumulated weight of the day dissolving into the surface beneath you. Your destination is the hypnagogic state, that exquisite threshold where your body has settled almost completely into rest, but your awareness maintains a gentle, floating presence. In this state, the guardian of your critical mind has lowered its vigilance, and the gates of the subconscious are open and unguarded. You have arrived at the portal. The wax is warm and entirely receptive. The fourth step is the song of the lullaby, the actual imprinting of your seal. With the delicacy of someone working with the most precious material imaginable, you now bring your chosen scene or feeling into your awareness. You inhabit it once, fully and genuinely. You allow the feeling it implies to move through your body with real intensity. And then you return to the beginning of that brief experience and repeat it again, not as mechanical repetition, not as a laborious duty, as a lullaby, as the rhythmic, soothing movement of a rocking motion that carries you gently deeper into the feeling with each cycle. With each repetition, the sensation becomes more familiar. With each return, the reality of it becomes more natural, more established, more simply the way things are. You are not straining to manifest. You are not petitioning. You are resting in the sensation of a reality that your sovereign consciousness has already decreed. If your attention drifts and a concern from the waking day surfaces, you do not respond with frustration. With the same tenderness a mother uses to return a sleeping infant to the cradle, you simply redirect your attention back to the lullaby, back to the feeling, back to the truth of your decree. The fifth step is the seal in sleep, the delivery to the giant. You continue this gentle, rhythmic cycle until, At some unnoticed point, you cross the threshold naturally. You fall asleep in the middle of your imaginary dwelling. This is the moment of the seal. This is the instant of deep imprinting. By falling asleep while inhabiting the feeling of your desire fulfilled, you have accomplished something of profound consequence. You have delivered to the giant not a wish, not a desire, not a hope, but a felt reality, and you have sealed that reality with the authority of sleep. Your final, conscious impression, saturated with the feeling of completion, becomes the primary directive that your subconscious builder will labor to materialize throughout the night. It, in its boundless intelligence and inexhaustible capacity, will receive that feeling as the master blueprint and will immediately begin moving the invisible threads of circumstances, organizing the synchronicities, inspiring the actions, and positioning the encounters that will present themselves to you upon waking as natural developments, as fortunate coincidences, as the universe simply responding to who you have chosen to be. Your imagination, as we have established, is not a mechanism for idle fantasy. It is the single most powerful tool of neurological reprogramming available to you. The untrained mind has been conditioned to distrust it, to dismiss it as a childish escape from the serious business of reality. But the awakened sovereign understands the truth. The solid facts of your external world are not reality in the deepest sense. They are the result. They are the structure already built, the echo of blueprints your subconscious has been faithfully executing, most of them composed long before you became conscious enough to choose them deliberately. The true seed of creation is not in the world of visible effects. It is in the world of invisible cause. And the only location where the cause can be deliberately altered, where the design of your future can be consciously redrawn, is within the workshop of your imagination. Every extraordinary human achievement, from the most awe-inspiring cathedral to the most moving symphony, from the bridge spanning two land masses to the vessel that carries human beings beyond the boundaries of the atmosphere, existed first, complete and perfect, in the imagination of its creator. Imagination is not an escape from reality. It is the very act of creating reality before it becomes visible. Your brain, the central processing system of your kingdom, cannot clearly distinguish between an experience that is unfolding in the physical world and an experience you are inhabiting with genuine intensity in your inner world. For the nervous system, both constitute real information. Both are treated as genuine rehearsal. When you inhabit an experience within your imagination, you activate the same neural circuits, release the same biochemical compounds, and transmit the same neurological signals throughout your body that would be activated if you were living the experience in the physical world. An athlete who rehearses a flawless performance in full sensory detail is, at a neurological level, actually running that race. The brain is transmitting microsignals to the musculature, constructing the neural pathways of accomplished execution. When you, as sovereign, settle into your inner throne and in your imagination move through the corridors of your already completed palace, you are not drifting. You are actively rewiring your brain. You are forging the neural architecture of your new reality even before the first material evidence of it has appeared in the world of form. This disciplined rehearsal generates what might be described as a memory of the future. Your brain functions, by its default design, as a prediction machine anchored in the past. It draws upon the vast archive of your accumulated experiences to anticipate what is most likely to occur next. When that archive is populated primarily with experiences of limitation, the brain will consistently generate predictions of more limitation. By inhabiting your desired reality in imagination with genuine emotional intensity, you are strategically entering the royal archive and deliberately installing a new memory. The vivid recollection of an experience that has not yet unfolded in the three-dimensional world, but that your brain now registers as an established event. Once this memory is installed through consistent repetition and genuine emotional charge, your brain's fundamental orientation shifts. Its new directive becomes the resolution of the dissonance between the installed inner reality and the current outer reflection. And because the internal signal, reinforced by your sovereign practice, has become stronger than the accumulated echo of the past, the brain begins to reorganize itself in your service rather than against you. For your imaginary act to carry maximum creative power, it must be constructed with the precision and intentionality of a master craftsman. Your sovereign blueprint must honor four foundational laws. The first is the law of the final result. The sovereign never visualizes the process, the intermediate steps, the obstacles to be navigated, or the mountain to be climbed. Visualizing the how is an act of the contracted ego, of the logical mind that insists on controlling every detail of the journey. By doing so, you confine your creative vision to the limitations you already know, closing the door to the unexpected pathways and extraordinary solutions that your conscious mind is simply not capable of conceiving in advance. You always visualize the fully realized final result, not the search for a career aligned with your purpose, but the moment of sharing the news with someone you love, feeling the deep relief and quiet joy of perfect alignment. Not the medical process, but the moment when someone who knows you well looks at you with genuine surprise and says something that could only be said to someone who has fully recovered. The second law is the law of the first person. You are never a distant observer watching events unfold on a screen. You are the protagonist. The scene is always experienced through your own eyes, from within your own body. You do not witness yourself receiving an embrace. You feel the warmth of arms around you and see the familiar contour of someone's shoulder from your own perspective. The third law is the law of sensory richness. The subconscious giant is the mind of the body, and it understands sensation above all else. To convince it that your blueprint represents a genuine reality, you must speak its language fully. What do you see through your own eyes in this scene? What sounds are present? What physical sensations are you aware of on your skin, in your hands, in your chest? Is there a quality of scent or taste associated with the fulfillment of this desire? The richer and more complete the sensory texture of your scene, the more real the experience will be to your nervous system, and the more deeply the impression will register in your subconscious. The fourth law is the law of emotional impregnation. The scene, however vivid and detailed, remains a cold mold without the feeling that gives it life. The sovereign's feeling is not the nervous excitement of pursuit or the anxious longing of wanting. It is the serene gratitude of someone whose reality has already settled into alignment. It is the quiet relief of completion. It is the still peace of something that is simply, naturally, already true. You have learned to light the fire of your heart, to generate the emotion and the vibration that functions as the fuel of all genuine creation. You possess the blueprint, and you carry the energy to build. But for the construction to commence, for the dormant giant to mobilize, and for the entire universe to register and honor the new law of your kingdom, the sovereign must perform one final act. He must emerge from his private workshop, enter the vast throne room, and before the assembled court of his entire being, promulgate the law. A blueprint, however perfect in its design, does not become law until it is proclaimed aloud. An intention, however deeply felt in the privacy of the inner temple, does not become a command until it is decreed with the full authority of the sovereign voice. The act that seals the contract, the one that transforms a held possibility into a binding mandate, is the royal word. You must learn to employ the key that converts silent intention into a tangible and creative force moving through the world. You must master the power of decree. At the center of every great wisdom tradition, and within every sacred text that has survived across the centuries of human civilization, the same primordial truth appears in different forms, but with identical meaning. In the beginning was the Word. The ancient Egyptians believed the Creator God brought the universe into existence through the act of naming. The Vedic traditions speak of a primordial sound from which all of manifest creation emerges. The Logos, the creative word. This is not poetic ornamentation or cultural mythology. It is a literal description of a law of the physics of consciousness. A thought, as we have thoroughly established, is a subtle vibration within the field of your mind. It is a blueprint. It exists as silent potential, as ethereal possibility. A spoken word, however, is something categorically different. It is a thought that has been given a body. It is the act of taking the intangible energy of an idea and granting it physical existence through the vibration of your vocal cords, through the movement of air, through a sound wave, traveling through the tangible world. The act of speaking is the bridge between the invisible world of cause and the visible world of effect. It is your first act of materialization. You are extracting something that existed only within the realm of mind and granting it a physical form, a measurable vibration in the world of matter. And both the universe and your subconscious respond to this embodiment with an immensely greater potency than they respond to silent thought alone. The science of cymatics has demonstrated visually and with extraordinary clarity how sound shapes matter. When a pure sound frequency is applied to a surface dusted with fine particles, those particles, which were previously distributed in random disorder, instantly organize themselves into intricate, symmetrical, and beautiful geometric patterns. A distinct geometric form corresponds to each specific frequency. Your words are that vibration. When you speak with genuine intention, you are not merely releasing air, you are transmitting a frequency wave that interacts with the quantum field surrounding you, instructing it as the particles are instructed to begin organizing according to the precise pattern of your decree. A silent thought is a blueprint drawn in ink. A spoken word is the sound of the builder's instruments beginning their labor, the first vibration that calls matter toward a new form. The act of speaking also strengthens the impression on your own subconscious in a way that silent thought cannot replicate. When you speak as sovereign, you engage your entire court simultaneously. You conceive the thought in the domain of your prefrontal awareness. You activate the motor pathways that move your mouth, your tongue, your vocal cords. You register the physical vibration resonating in your chest and throat, the sensation of authority moving through your own body. And you hear your own voice delivering the decree back to your own ears. This complete loop engages multiple regions of your brain simultaneously, constructing a far wider and more durable neural pathway for your new conviction than silence could ever produce. You are issuing the command and simultaneously receiving the confirmation of that command through the physical sensation of your own voice. And beyond the neurological, a spoken word, a decree delivered with genuine intention, carries the full psychological weight of authority. A thought can remain a question, a hesitation, a tentative wish. A word spoken with conscious intention is a command. The subconscious giant responds powerfully to certainty and authority. The uncertain voice of silent doubt is easily overridden by the established patterns of the past. But the resonant voice of a decree spoken with conviction is an instruction the giant cannot disregard. If the word is a key, then the words I am are the sovereign's scepter itself. I am is not a simple affirmation among other affirmations. It is a declaration of identity. It is the name that throughout every mystical tradition has been associated with pure creative consciousness itself. When you prefix your decree with I am, you are not petitioning the universe for something positioned outside yourself. You are declaring a fundamental truth about your own nature as an expression of the universe. I want to experience abundance is the petitioner's prayer. It affirms by its very construction that abundance is absent. I am abundance is the sovereign's decree. It affirms identity. It collapses the perceived separation between you and what you desire, because it states without qualification that there is no distance to be traversed. You are not attempting to attract abundance from an external location. You are declaring that you are the substance, the consciousness, and the expression of abundance, choosing to manifest through your particular form of existence. And the universe, which is your kingdom, cannot reflect back anything other than the identity its sovereign has claimed with unwavering authority. A decree is not a casual phrase constructed hastily and repeated without attention. It is an instrument of consciousness engineering, forged with the precision and care of someone who understands exactly what they are building. For your decree to carry the creative force necessary to move the unseen world and to command the giant within you, it must be shaped by 3 sacred fires. The first fire is the clarity of the absolute present. The subconscious giant, the builder of your kingdom, inhabits an eternal present. It does not process the future tense as a location it can build toward. It does not register command phrased as something that will eventually be true, as an instruction to begin building now. A decree formulated in the future I will be prosperous, or I am going to experience genuine connection is a command that perpetually postpones its own fulfillment. You are programming the giant to maintain prosperity and connection as permanent features of the horizon, always approaching, never arriving. Your decree must be a proclamation of a truth that is established right now on the plane of consciousness where all creation originates. Not I will be, but I am. Not I will have, but I have. Not someday, but now. The second fire is the light of positive affirmation. Your subconscious mind thinks in images and sensations rather than in logical negations. It does not effectively process the word not as an instruction to exclude something. If your decree contains the phrase, I am not experiencing scarcity, the subconscious registers the emotionally charged image of scarcity and strengthens its presence in your awareness. You are unintentionally reinforcing the very condition you are attempting to dissolve. You must formulate every decree in terms that build the image of what you are choosing, rather than attempting to eliminate the image of what you are moving away from. Not I am free of illness, but I am vibrant health, expressing itself fully through every cell of my being. Not I have no financial burdens, but I am the consciousness of financial freedom and abundant flow. You always build the palace in your decree, never the scaffolding you intend to dismantle. The third fire is the resonance of your heart, the quality of authentic alignment. The words you select must feel genuinely expansive when you speak them aloud. They must resonate with you at a level beneath the analytical mind. A decree is not a universal formula to be applied identically by every sovereign. It is a personal composition, a specific phrase that fits the unique frequency of your voice and your authentic inner state. If you repeat a decree that your conscious mind actively rejects as obviously false, given the evidence of your current circumstances, you may generate an internal conflict that actually diminishes rather than amplifies the creative power of your practice. Build a bridge with your language. Use a decree that feels like a genuine reach toward an expanded truth, rather than a complete break with your current experience. Instead of forcing a statement that feels entirely disconnected from your present inner reality, find the phrasing that, when spoken, causes something in your chest to open, something that feels like a genuine yes. That resonance is the signature of your soul confirming alignment. With your decree shaped and personally authentic, the moment for proclamation arrives. Create a space of genuine stillness. Calm the activity of your inner court as you have learned to do. Enter the state of quiet presence so that your sovereign voice becomes the only sound resonating through the kingdom. Before speaking a single word, first embody the feeling that your decree describes. If your decree is, I am at peace, generate the actual sensation of peace in your body before you speak. Allow it to move through your chest, to soften your face, to settle your breathing. The sovereign does not proclaim peace from a state of inner turbulence. He speaks from within the peace itself. And then you proclaim your decree with the calm, resonant authority of someone who is not requesting anything, but is informing the universe of a decision that has already been made, irrevocably and finally, in the court of your sovereign consciousness. Speak it aloud when circumstances permit. Feel the physical vibration of your words moving through your throat and chest. Hear your own voice delivering the new law to your own ears. After proclaiming the decree one time or several times until the truth of it feels established and settled in your body, the most essential act follows. Silence. You do not repeat the decree with anxious urgency into the minutes that follow. Anxious repetition is doubt expressing itself through action. It is the king sending messenger after messenger to verify whether the servants truly heard the original order. You have promulgated the law. You rest in the certainty that it has been registered throughout your kingdom and that the machinery of creation has already begun its response. Let go. Surrender the outcome to the giant. Trust the process that you have set in motion. Your daily verbal practice extends this ritual into every ordinary conversation and every private thought of the waking hours. Pay genuine attention to the language you habitually employ throughout your day. Do your words consistently reinforce the decree you have issued, or do they systematically contradict it? If you have proclaimed, "I am financial freedom," but spend the daylight hours speaking about scarcity, complaining about costs, and joining conversations that celebrate limitation, you are issuing contradictory instructions to your subconscious simultaneously. You are planting a seed of sovereign intention and then returning hourly to water it with poison. The awakened sovereign practices verbal coherence as a continuous discipline of self-governance. He speaks as though his new reality is already an established feature of his experience, not with performative arrogance, but with the natural composure of someone whose inner world has genuinely shifted. He does not say, "This is beyond what I can afford." He says, "That is not where I am choosing to direct my resources at this moment." He does not say, "I cannot do that." He says, "That is not aligned with my current priorities." He does not join conversations that celebrate powerlessness and complaint. He remains quiet or redirects with grace, not from a posture of superiority, but from an unwavering loyalty to the frequency of his own kingdom. Before a sovereign can fill the treasury of his kingdom, he must first understand with complete honesty why it has remained empty. The sleeping sovereign gazes at an empty treasury and locates the cause everywhere in the external world: the economy, his circumstances of birth, the decisions of others, the randomness of fortune. The awakened sovereign understands the concealed truth. Scarcity is not an external condition that has befallen him. It is a state of consciousness he has been inhabiting. You do not experience financial limitation because of an absence of money in the world around you. You experience it because you inhabit by default a consciousness of poverty. And your kingdom, as the most faithful mirror in existence, reflects that inner state back to you with absolute precision. Poverty consciousness is not a single idea. It is a self-sustaining internal structure, an ecosystem of disempowerment that rests on several interconnected foundations. At its base are the inherited laws, the constitution of scarcity that was written into your subconscious before you possessed the awareness to question its content. Beliefs such as wealth is the province of people who compromise their integrity, or the acquisition of money requires exhausting sacrifice, or individuals from my particular background are destined for a particular level of material experience. These are not simply passing thoughts. They are decrees. They are the foundational laws your subconscious giant is compelled to execute in every circumstance of your financial life. If your constitution contains the hidden law that to be genuinely good is to be without significant material wealth, your giant will systematically undermine every avenue toward prosperity to preserve your sense of your own goodness. Above this foundation of treasonous beliefs rises the emotional atmosphere of lack, the dominant feeling state that these beliefs generate in your daily experience. The persistent knot of anxiety when facing financial obligations, the contracted fear underlying every significant financial decision, the quiet shame associated with a gap between your current reality and the life you sense is possible. This emotional atmosphere is the vibrational music of your kingdom, and the universe, functioning as the most exquisitely sensitive instrument imaginable, can only resonate with what you are already broadcasting. And manifesting from this foundation of contracted beliefs and anxious emotional atmosphere are the behavioral patterns of the subject rather than the sovereign, decisions made from the fear of losing rather than the confidence of creating, the reluctance to invest in your own growth, your own development, your own expanded capacity, because spending feels dangerous rather than generative, the unconscious resistance to receiving graciously, whether the offering is a compliment, an unexpected opportunity, or material support, because somewhere in the constitution of your kingdom, a law declares that you have not yet earned the right to receive without guilt. The dissolution of this lead begins not with the pursuit of money, but with the honest examination of consciousness. Take the ledger of your inner kingdom, and with the unflinching honesty of a sovereign who genuinely intends to restore his realm to its natural abundance, conduct a complete audit. What did the environment of your formative years communicate to you about the nature of wealth and the character of those who possess it? What narrative about money do you habitually rehearse internally? What secret conviction might be actively working against the prosperity you consciously desire? Write, without censorship, every treasonous law you uncover. The act of drawing these beliefs from the darkened basement of your subconscious into the full light of your conscious awareness begins immediately to dissolve their invisible authority over your experience. Then, apply the universal solvent of honest acceptance. Look at your current financial reality not as evidence of personal failure, but as the precise and perfect reflection of the programming that has been operating in your kingdom. You do not condemn yourself. You do not construct elaborate explanations rooted in blame of others. You simply acknowledge this is what is. This is the accurate output of the laws I have until now allowed to govern my kingdom. I receive this reflection as diagnostic information, as the precise starting point for the alchemical work of transformation. The prosperous sovereign does not pursue gold as though it is a scarce resource located somewhere external to himself that he must compete to acquire. He becomes the consciousness of gold, and then the material reflection of that consciousness appears in his experience as a natural consequence, as the inevitable output of a sovereign who has genuinely changed his inner law. This inner transformation moves through three essential stages. First, he employs the architect's workshop to construct a clear and sensorially rich blueprint of his desired financial reality, a first-person scene implying the fulfillment of his desire. Saturated with the specific feeling of genuine financial peace rather than the excited anxiety of pursuit. Second, he delivers that blueprint through the ritual of deep imprinting in the portal of sleep, falling asleep night after night in the feeling of being a person for whom financial security and abundant flow are simply the established facts of existence. Third, he embodies the consciousness of prosperity throughout the waking hours of his daily life. He circulates money with the confidence of someone who understands that energy, like blood, must flow to remain vital. He pays his obligations with genuine appreciation for what those obligations represent. He gives generously, not from a performative desire to demonstrate abundance, but from the authentic inner state of someone who inhabits a universe of genuine sufficiency. He speaks the language of an abundant sovereign in his daily conversations and in the private monologue of his own thinking. The restoration of the physical temple follows an identical architecture of consciousness. Your body is not a machine separate from your mind that periodically malfunctions and requires external repair. It is the most immediate and intimate mirror of your consciousness available to you. It is the physical expression in dense matter of the inner state you have been broadcasting. Your subconscious mind is the architect and the tireless builder of your physical form. It already holds in its vast archives the master blueprint of your body in its natural state of harmony and vitality. The original design before it was overlaid with the contradictory commands of a court in disorder. Chronic states of fear flood your system with biochemical compounds designed for emergency survival, compounds that are brilliant in their intended context and corrosive when maintained without interruption over years and decades. The sustained vibration of unforgiveness and resentment instructs your subconscious to maintain an internal atmosphere of attack that the immune system, loyal and literal as it is, eventually begins to direct inward in the absence of a clear external target. The belief, accepted without examination, that a particular condition is your inheritance, your identity, or your inevitable future, functions as a signed decree delivered to the giant with the full authority of your conscious acceptance. The restoration begins with the dissolution of the emotional poisons that have been issuing sabotage commands. Forgiveness understood, not as a moral gesture extended toward another for their benefit, but as the sovereign act of revoking a self-attack order you have been unknowingly maintaining, is the most potent alchemical solvent available. Then, the imprinting of the new blueprint, the delivery of a scene, and a feeling implying the restoration of vitality and harmony, using the portal of sleep and the ritual of the lullaby as the mechanism of delivery. And finally, the embodiment of the healthy sovereign throughout the waking hours, the disciplined withdrawal of attention from the old blueprint and its symptoms, the refusal to rehearse the story of limitation with everyone who asks, the practice of blessing the extraordinary intelligence of the body that has been building and sustaining your temple without a single deliberate instruction from your conscious mind for every moment of your existence. The harmony of your relational world emerges from the same source. The experience you have of others, your partner, your family, your colleagues, is not an objective and fixed reality. It is a reflection. It is the most intimate mirror of your relationship with yourself. The treasonous laws of unworthiness inscribed in your constitution in your earliest years, the atmospheric frequency of need broadcasting a vibrational signal of inner emptiness, the behavioral patterns of emotional commerce and unconscious projection that perpetuate the cycle of conflict, all of these are dissolved through the identical alchemical process. The audit of the inner court, the withdrawal of projection, the construction of a sovereign blueprint of genuine connection and mutual respect, the imprinting of that blueprint through the ritual of sleep, and the embodiment of a love relationship with yourself so genuine and so complete that you cease broadcasting the frequency of lack entirely and begin radiating the frequency of fullness, because the universe does not deliver what you desire, it delivers what you are. And when you become, through the consistent sovereign practice of inner alchemy, the consciousness of love in its most complete and unconditional expression, that consciousness must, by the immutable law of resonance, draw its equivalent into your experience. The state of sovereign mastery arrives not through the accumulation of more techniques, but through the genuine integration of the ones you have already received. The scaffolding of practice serves its essential function during the period of construction. But the goal of all scaffolding has always been its own eventual removal once the structure it supported has become self-sustaining, capable of standing in its own magnificence without external support. The techniques dissolve not because you abandon them, but because you have inhabited them with such consistency and genuine devotion that they have become your natural way of being. You no longer require a nightly ritual to imprint abundance, because your dominant state of being has become the consciousness of abundance. You no longer need to deliberately generate gratitude to elevate your vibrational frequency, because your heart has settled by habit into a natural atmosphere of appreciation and peace. The conscious effort required during the period of construction gives way to a state of effortless being from which the reality you have chosen emanates naturally, as the fragrance of a flower emanates not through effort, but through the simple, complete expression of what the flower is. The three jewels of the sovereign crown are these. First, an unconditional peace that does not require favorable external circumstances as its prerequisite. A stability of inner state that persists in the eye of the storm, because it is rooted not in the contents of the treasury, but in the sovereign's absolute knowing that he is himself the source of the treasury. Second, a radical responsibility that has permanently relinquished the role of victim and reclaimed the full authority of creator, not as a burden, but as the most complete liberation available to a human being. For the moment, you genuinely stop locating the cause of your experience outside yourself. You reclaim the entirety of your power to shape it. Third, an effortless quality of action that arises not from the tension of needing to make things happen, but from the natural overflow of a being who is already complete. Action as expression rather than strategy. Movement as the dance of someone in genuine harmony with the intelligence of life itself. Your practice from this point forward is the practice of governance, not the struggle of the gardener clearing weeds from abandoned terrain, but the sovereign walk of presence through a garden that has matured into its own self-sustaining abundance. When the echo of an old program surfaces in your experience, you observe it without identification. You remember your new law, and you Consciously redirect your attention from the rebellion of the old pattern back to the truth of your sovereign vision, starving the echo of its sustaining energy and nourishing the manifestation of your chosen reality. This is the golden touch. This is the most powerful act of governance available to you in any moment. The techniques were the map. They were the royal messenger who carried the seal to the exiled prince in the distant village. But you were never the exile. You were always the sovereign. And the purpose of this entire journey was never to teach you how to use power. It was simply to remind you of what you have always been. Your reign begins not at some future moment of completed transformation. Your reign begins in this precise instant, in the quality of attention you choose to place on the truth of your own sovereign nature, rather than on the shadows of an old story your mirror has been faithfully reflecting back to you. What you do with this knowledge now is, as it has always been, entirely your choice, and that, more than anything else shared within this material, is the deepest expression of your sovereignty. Elite Success Audiobooks exists to accompany you on this path, to place in your hands the tools and the wisdom that remind you of what you were born to be. If something within you shifted during this experience, if some layer of the amnesia has begun to dissolve, share this with someone in your life whose sovereignty you believe in. Leave your experience in the comments below. Your words may be the royal messenger that finds another exiled prince exactly when they are ready to hear the truth. The decree has been proclaimed. The throne has always been yours. There is a question that the sleeping sovereign never thinks to ask, not because the answer is hidden from him, not because the wisdom required to ask it is beyond his reach, but because the amnesia runs so deep that the question itself has been buried beneath layers of inherited assumption and accumulated habit. The question is this: what if the life I have been living is not the result of what has happened to me, but the precise and faithful output of who I have been on the inside? In the silence of my own court, in the quality of my own dominant feeling, in the foundational laws inscribed in the constitution of my own subconscious kingdom. What if every external condition I have ever faced, every recurring pattern, every persistent limitation, every seemingly immovable circumstance has been not a cause, but an effect, not the origin of my experience, but the mirror of it? The moment this question lands with genuine weight, not as an intellectual observation, but as a felt recognition in the center of the chest, everything shifts. The entire architecture of your relationship with reality reorganizes itself around a new center of gravity. You stop being the subject of your story, and you begin, perhaps for the first time, to recognize yourself as its author. This is not a comfortable realization in the early moments of its arrival. True sovereignty rarely announces itself gently. It arrives with the quiet force of something that cannot be unfelt once it has been genuinely felt. Because if you are the author, then the story can be rewritten. And if the story can be rewritten, then the responsibility for rewriting it rests entirely and without exception on the sovereign who holds the pen. The awakened sovereign understands that this responsibility is not a weight. It is the precise opposite. It is the removal of every weight that the sleeping sovereign has been carrying without awareness. Every burden of blame, every exhausting campaign of resistance against external conditions, every futile prayer directed toward a power imagined to reside somewhere outside the self. All of it dissolves in the light of this single recognition. The power has always been here. It has always been internal. It has always been you. And the only reason it has not been producing the kingdom you genuinely desire is that it has been receiving its instructions from the wrong source, from the accumulated noise of an unexamined court, rather than from the deliberate decree of an awakened sovereign. The final practice of the sovereign is therefore not a technique at all. It is a way of inhabiting existence. It is a quality of presence that you bring to every moment of your ordinary day, not only to the sacred ritual of the nightly lullaby, not only to the formal practice of the scientific prayer, not only to the deliberate construction of blueprints in the architect's workshop. It is the practice of continuous governance, the ongoing, moment-to-moment act of noticing where your attention has drifted and consciously returning it to the truth of your chosen identity. The garden metaphor that we explored earlier carries within it a final dimension that deserves your full attention now. The sovereign who has labored with devotion and consistency through the seasons of initial transformation eventually discovers that the nature of his work has changed entirely. The ground that once required enormous effort to break open and prepare has become receptive and alive. The seeds that once needed careful protection from the frost of old habitual thinking have grown into robust structures with deep root systems. The weeds of inherited belief that once demanded constant vigilance to remove have been crowded out by the canopy of a thriving new inner ecosystem. In this mature garden, the sovereign's primary relationship with his kingdom is no longer one of effort, but of enjoyment. His presence itself, his genuine appreciation of what has grown, his unhurried attention to the fragrance of what is flourishing, is what maintains and continuously deepens the vitality of the kingdom. He does not need to return daily to the foundational labor, because the foundation has been laid with such consistency and care that it now sustains itself. What remains is the most refined and the most genuinely pleasurable aspect of sovereignty, the art of governing from a place of natural alignment rather than disciplined striving. This is the state the ancient traditions have pointed toward across every culture and every century. Not the heroic struggle of someone fighting to create a better life, but the quiet mastery of someone whose inner world has become so genuinely coherent with their chosen truth that the outer world has no choice but to reflect it back in kind. The three jewels of the sovereign crown, the unconditional peace, the radical responsibility, and the effortless quality of action, are not achievements to be obtained at some distant point of completion. They are qualities of being that become increasingly accessible with every genuine act of inner governance you practice. Each time you observe the echo of an old pattern in your external mirror, without identifying with it and without granting it the authority to destabilize your chosen inner state, you deepen the roots of unconditional peace. Each time you resist the familiar pull of blame and instead turn the mirror of honest inquiry toward your own inner court, asking, what belief or vibration in me has called this experience into being? You strengthen the foundation of radical responsibility. Each time you act not from the contracted urgency of someone trying to force outcomes, but from the natural overflow of a being who is genuinely aligned with their own sovereign truth, You embody the effortless quality of action that distinguishes the master from the perpetual student. You will encounter mornings when the mirror still shows the echoes of an older broadcast, when the circumstances of your external world have not yet caught up with the inner shifts you have been genuinely making. These are the moments that most clearly separate the sleeping sovereign from the awakened one. The sleeping sovereign sees the unchanged reflection and concludes that the inner work has failed, that the law does not apply to him, that the power available to others is somehow unavailable to his particular situation. And in reaching that conclusion, he cancels with a single decree of doubt every seed of sovereign intention he has planted. The awakened sovereign sees the unchanged reflection and recognizes it for precisely what it is, an echo of the past, a delayed broadcast, the natural lag between cause and effect that is not evidence of failure, but simply the nature of how the creative process unfolds in time. He does not panic. He does not abandon his throne. He observes the old reflection with the calm of someone who knows with certainty what has already been decreed in the court of his consciousness. And he returns his attention, without drama, without self-condemnation, without urgency, to the truth of his chosen inner state. This is the practice of patience, understood at its deepest level, not the passive patience of someone waiting for external conditions to improve. The active patience of a sovereign who governs his inner kingdom with complete conviction, while the outer kingdom, operating on its own timeline and through its own mechanisms of synchronicity and reorganization, catches up with the new law that has been issued. The tree does not become anxious during winter because the spring seems distant. It simply continues to be what it is at its root level, knowing that the external expression of its inner nature is not in question, only in process. What you carry forward from this experience is not a collection of techniques to be performed mechanically in isolated moments of the day. What you carry forward is a fundamentally altered understanding of what you are, of how reality is actually constructed, and of where your genuine authority over your own experience actually resides. You carry forward the knowledge that your subconscious mind is not a passive recorder of external events, but the active builder of your entire experienced world. That your feeling is not a reaction to circumstances, but the creative signal that calls circumstances into being. That your imagination is not an escape from reality, but the very faculty through which reality is first shaped before it becomes visible in the world of form. And that the words "I am," spoken with genuine conviction from within a felt state of sovereign identity, are among the most powerful creative instruments available to any human being. Elite Success audiobooks will continue to accompany you on this path, not because the journey requires an external guide indefinitely, but because the most powerful reminders often arrive through voices that reflect your own deepest knowing back to you at precisely the moment you are ready to receive them. If something within you has genuinely shifted through this experience, allow that shift to move outward. Share it. Speak about it. Let the decree you have issued within the privacy of your own sovereign court begin to express itself in the quality of your conversations, in the new authority of your presence, in the subtle but unmistakable way you begin to carry yourself through the world of your daily experience. The throne has never been vacant. It has simply been occupied by the noise of an unexamined court rather than by the deliberate presence of an awakened sovereign. That presence is yours. It has always been yours, and every moment of every day that remains, you carry within you the complete authority to govern the kingdom of your own consciousness with the wisdom, the grace, and the unwavering conviction of someone who has remembered finally and completely who they truly are. There is one final truth that the sovereign must carry with him as he steps away from this material and back into the living theater of his daily experience. It is not a technique. It is not a ritual. It is not a formula to be applied at a designated moment of the day. It is a single foundational recognition that, once genuinely absorbed, functions as the master key to everything that has been shared across the entirety of this journey. And it is this: the kingdom you desire is not being withheld from you. It is not located at some distant point on the horizon, accessible only after a sufficient period of effort and demonstration of worthiness. It is not the reward for perfect practice or the prize awarded to those who perform the rituals with the greatest consistency or the most disciplined devotion. The kingdom is not something you are moving toward. It is something you are moving from. The difference between these two orientations is the difference between the sleeping sovereign and the awakened one. The difference between a life experienced as a perpetual pursuit and a life experienced as a natural, continuous expression of who you genuinely are at the deepest level of your being. The sleeping sovereign spends the entirety of his existence in pursuit. He pursues financial security because his inner constitution tells him it is scarce and therefore must be chased. He pursues love because his foundational laws declare it to be conditional and therefore subject to being withdrawn at any moment. He pursues health because his dominant relationship with his body is one of vigilant fear rather than natural trust. He pursues approval because somewhere in the darkened archive of his subconscious, a law was inscribed long ago that declared his worth to be dependent on the judgment of others. And because he is perpetually in pursuit, the universe, functioning as the most faithful mirror imaginable, continuously reflects back to him the experience of someone for whom all these things remain just out of reach. The frequency of pursuit is the frequency of lack, and the law of resonance, impersonal and absolute in its operation, can only return to you the vibrational equivalent of what you are genuinely broadcasting. The awakened sovereign moves from a fundamentally different orientation. He has done the inner work. He has conducted the honest audit of his court. He has identified and begun dissolving the treasonous laws written in his constitution. He has practiced the ritual of deep imprinting with consistency and genuine feeling. He has proclaimed his decrees with the resonant authority of someone who understands that the word is an act of creation. And through the sustained practice of inner governance, something has shifted at a level deeper than conscious thought. His natural resting state, the atmosphere of his inner court, when no particular effort is being made, has gradually become one of sufficiency rather than lack, of expansion rather than contraction, of trust rather than vigilance. He no longer needs to remind himself to feel abundant, because abundance has become his default inner orientation. He no longer needs to consciously generate the feeling of being loved, because his relationship with himself has become so genuinely nourishing that the experience of love has ceased to feel like something he must acquire from outside. And from this inner state of natural sufficiency, his actions in the world carry a completely different quality. They are no longer driven by the anxious energy of someone who needs a particular outcome in order to feel safe or worthy or complete. They are the natural expression of a being who is already at the level of inner reality, exactly where he desires to be. His generosity is not a strategy for attracting more. It is the natural overflow of someone who inhabits a consciousness of genuine abundance. His creativity is not a desperate attempt to prove his worth. It is the spontaneous expression of a mind that has been liberated from the constant burden of self-defense. His relationships carry a new quality of freedom because he no longer approaches them as transactions designed to fill an inner void, but as connections between two individuals who are each, in their own way, practicing the art of sovereign self-governance. This is the life that becomes available on the other side of genuine inner transformation, not a life of perfect circumstances, because the sovereign understands that the mirror will always show him something, and that some of what it shows will be the lingering echo of older broadcasts still completing their expression in the world of form. But a life in which the relationship with every circumstance, challenging or favorable, has been permanently altered. A life in which the sovereign no longer looks at the mirror with fear or desperation, but with the calm curiosity of someone who knows exactly what they are observing, and exactly what inner adjustment, if any, is being invited. You have been given the map. You have walked through the throne room and seen the seat of your own authority with new eyes. What happens next belongs entirely to you, to the quality of attention you bring to your inner court in the ordinary moments of your coming days, to the consistency with which you choose the voice of inspiration over the voice of fear, to the depth of feeling you bring to the nightly ritual of imprinting your sovereign truth onto the receptive canvas of your subconscious mind. The decree has been issued. The kingdom awaits its ruler, and the ruler, as it has always been, is you.